WNST. Who's watching on our Facebook Live and our YouTube WNSTV channel to look at the bags under my eyes, to also in the background see that I had brought out the purple Festivus rope lights, Luke Jones. I found them out at the radio station. It had been a number of years since I had them aglow. They sort of glow more of a pink than a purple, as I remember. But I was all ready to, decorate and get the office here ready for Kansas City, or a road trip ready for New England, and then the Colts do their business on Saturday. As you know, I had 5 buses pointed toward Providence and Boston, and we were ready to go make this thing happen. And I guess in the aftermath of all of this, as the sports radio guy and as the guy that chases the team around 6 days a week out in Owings Mills, there is a little cool-out period here when you clean out the lockers to say, well, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, it ends very, very quickly, very abruptly, doesn't it?
I was just going to say that. The finality of it it's unlike any other sport when you really think about it, other than if you play in the wild card game in baseball. I mean, think about it. Hockey, best of 7 every round. NBA, best of 7 every round. Baseball, even the division series is a best of 5. You have a chance to have a bad day, and you can overcome it. That's not the case in the NFL. And for what you just said, I mean, the Festivus and people really getting excited, and the euphoria of Week 17 and how much fun that was, and the build-up to a home playoff game, and you just snap your fingers and it's done.
Do you know how hard it was to get the dust off of my Festivus lights, Luke? Took me all day Friday to do that. Now, I'm ready to hang them on Sunday, and now I got to put them away again until, by the way, I don't know when. This isn't one of those, the Bears lose and feel like, wow, we got a pretty good team. We'll be back next year. I don't know what to make of Lamar Jackson. I don't know what to make of what's going to happen to John Harbaugh this week, and I'm not buying any of the kumbaya stuff. I don't know what's going to happen with Joe Flacco. We don't have a good draft spot. We know that, right? So all of this concocted, I don't come back and say, oh, yeah, they're 11 or 12 win team next year. I don't know what they are because don't tell anybody, Luke, don't tell anybody, but I don't believe in the quarterback. I'm not sold that this kid's the Messiah, and 6 years from now, we've got the next Matt Ryan or the next Tom Brady or the next Aaron Rodgers or the next – I'm not convinced we have the next Andy Dalton, for crying out loud. I mean, I'm not buying it. I wasn't buying it to begin with. It's fun when it's going on, but when you're down 10 points and you feel like you're down 30 because you can't catch up, it's a little weird to me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I also think let's not be completely dismissive of the fact that Lamar Jackson had a pretty significant role in this team winning 6 of its last 7. And look, I hear every concern that you lay out, and I'm not even saying I don't share those same concerns, but as difficult as it is with, as you mentioned, the finality, how abrupt it is when it comes to an end, there's also the perspective of this is a rookie quarterback. And go back and look at Joe Flacco's statistics in his first postseason run. And I know the Ravens went to the AFC Championship. He threw 1 touchdown pass in 3 games. He threw, I believe, 3 or 4 interceptions in those 3 games. He really didn't become, quote, January Joe. He really didn't become the reason why they were winning playoff games, one of the reasons why they were winning playoff games, until his 3rd year. I mean, it's just the truth. Anyone who wants to suggest otherwise, you're using revisionist history. So, now that said, Lamar Jackson absolutely has to get better. And that was going to be the case no matter what happened Sunday or next week in Foxborough, or if they made it to Kansas City the following week, or they were hosting the Colts in the AFC Championship. I mean, everyone was thinking about all those possibilities, all those different combinations, but it came like, I would say cold water in the face, but that doesn't do it justice how poor that was on Sunday. And it wasn't just him by a long shot. Their offensive line was horrendous. We saw firsthand that their wide receivers didn't make plays. Imagine that. Wide receivers not making plays for a Ravens quarterback. How many times have we talked about that?
We've been talking about that since Clarence Moore, I think, yes.
I'll go back to what I said to you, and I've repeated myself on this, and I will continue to repeat myself on this. I hope this organization, now with Eric DeCosta as its general manager, has learned its lesson over the last 5 to 6 years and does a much better job building around Lamar Jackson, because Sunday proved he's got a long way to go. And by the way, you could have said the same thing about Joe Flacco after year one. Joe Flacco wasn't the biggest reason why the Ravens made it to the AFC Championship game. That was another complimentary football team. The problem was on Sunday, the three phases didn't all show up. The defense did, and you give them a lot of credit, but the offense was horrendous. The play calling, my goodness, Nestor, looking at some of how that game played out, we've talked about the fact that the Chargers used a quarter defense, and what that means is they had 7 defensive backs on the field. So inherently, if the opposing defense goes really light with their personnel and you want to try to run the ball, what do you think you would try to do? You would try to go heavy, right? You would try to use 2 and 3 tight end sets, as the Ravens do quite frequently. But let me give you the snap counts for the Ravens on Sunday. And don't tell me it's because they fell behind, because they still tried to run the ball plenty. And they kept...
Yeah, when you fall behind, your game plan doesn't change when you have this offense. You just run more, right? I mean, you just run left instead of right. You run through the middle. That's what this offense is going to do, right?
But that said, and you're right, they had 61 offensive snaps on Sunday. Mark Andrews was on the field for 28 snaps. Nick Boyle, who has been the linchpin of this running game with what he's done as a blocker over the last 2 years, even go back to last year, Nick Boyle was on the field for 18 of 61 snaps. Max Williams was on the field for 17 of 61 snaps. And Hayden Hurst on the field, 16 snaps out of 61. So you basically decided you were going to play right into the hands of what the Chargers were doing by having 7 defensive backs on the field? It makes no sense to me. Where was the adjustment there? Why didn't they go heavy? If a guy like me, who's by no means a football savant, was talking about the fact that the Chargers run more dime package than anyone else in the NFL, why wouldn't you try to go heavy?
Well, their dime was their base on Sunday, right? Literally.
Right. Well, right. And I know Monday Morning Quarterback did a great piece Sunday night, basically breaking down what they did. They had 3 defensive linemen up front, and most of the time, or many times, it was Bosa and Ingram just pinching in. And we saw Bosa and Ingram both dominate James Hurst to the point that he got benched. But they pinched their defensive linemen in. They used a really tight alignment, and we saw the Browns do that in the fourth quarter in Week 17, and they had some success. I mean, not a whole lot, because we know the Ravens ran very successfully against them, but they pinched them in, and that certainly disrupted some of the pulls that the Ravens like to use and some of the trap plays and things of that nature. And then they just had 8 defensive backs who were like, pack rats, just like all over the place, just trying to give Lamar Jackson nowhere to run. But to me, when a team goes that light, how do you not use tight ends and basically give yourselves 7 offensive linemen on the field? How do you not do that more than the Ravens did on Sunday? I don't understand that. And it's something that we didn't ask immediately after the game because, we all get a chance to go back and rewatch the game and really see what happened. It's tough to pick up on everything the first time around, but I don't understand. I don't understand where the adjustment was, and we can point to execution, and certainly the Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson and the offensive line executed poorly, but where was Marty Morningway? Was he, did he just...
Well, I think to some degree they sat around for a week and tried to undo everything they did out in California to give different looks and to do things differently. It didn't work. It didn't work.
But that was the thing. Where was the adjustment then? It's one thing if you did, and very clearly they tried to change it up from a fact that they didn't go with nearly as many heavy packages. But when it became obvious that the Chargers were using 7 defensive backs, they used 7 DBs on the field for, I believe, all but one play on Sunday. So how do you not look at that tendency and try to go heavy and try to make them pay with the power running game that they've used so much over the last 8 weeks? So I just don't understand that part of it, and that's where the Ravens, you can talk about the players and you can talk about Lamar Jackson, and those are all valid things to point to. They got completely outcoached their offensive coaching staff compared to what Gus Bradley and the Chargers defensive staff did, and that's a big problem. And it really just, I look at it and I still scratch my head as, we're now getting into that 24, 48-hour period after the game. And
well, as I pointed out, what happened?
Exactly.
What was that train that came through here and was beating us 23-3 all of a sudden, right?
Right. And that's where, I went home Sunday night, and I didn't write anything at that point in time, and I rewatched the game. And watching it the second time, it just, you scratch your head at how horrible that was. And they made the mistake.
Well, they were beaten on almost every play where for 7 weeks they sort of won every battle. When you're getting 6 and 7 and 8 yards on first down at will, you're winning every snap. And I don't know. I said all week long it was going to be X's and O's, it was going to be the coaches, it was going to be schemes, it was going to be what are you going to do differently than what you did 2 weeks ago, because the Ravens annihilated them for a half and then pretty much were on their heels and were lucky to get out of there to some degree and making a big play at the end of that game instead of having a big play made unto them. Sunday, it really did look like two different football teams to a large degree, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson and a good reminder. We talk about this all the time. We think we figure things out in the NFL. We always talk about Team A beats Team B beats Team C, then Team A should beat Team C, right? And it doesn't work that way quite often, and we're back to the drawing board. And I even wrote at WNST.net late in the week, last week, that the last time the Ravens had played the same team this close together, in this short period of time, it's twice in 15 days, you go back to 2012, their Super Bowl year, and they played the Steelers twice in 3 weeks, and they went to Heinz Field. They won a nail-biter. I believe, I can't recall, that might have been a Jacoby Jones punt return game, but Charlie Batch 2 weeks later came to Baltimore and beat the Ravens. And, of course, we all remember the example later that season where the Broncos came into Baltimore, absolutely annihilated the Ravens, and 4 weeks later they went to Denver and, well, the ball goes over Raheem Moore's head, and Jacoby Jones catches the miracle, and the Ravens go to the AFC Championship and eventually the Super Bowl. So just because something happened 2 weeks ago, even on the road, doesn't mean that you're going to get the same result coming back to your place. And it was very clear as far as the whole chess match, the whole adjustment game, the Chargers did a way better job than the Baltimore Ravens did. And then when you compound that, you kind of make that whole proposition even worse by, let me just throw a couple things out there. And I realized it happened at the time, but rewatching it, 3 fumbles on 3 straight offensive plays in the first quarter, and Lamar Jackson completes 2 passes very early and then did not complete another pass for the entire first half and had 3 completions through 3 quarters. I mean, you're just talking about some historically inept offense through the first 50 minutes. I mean, that was as bad as a Ravens offense has been. And I said it to you, that game until the fourth quarter, that felt very London-like for the Ravens, just in terms of the complete ineptitude of the offense. Then you throw out the special teams mistakes, and you have a defense that played very admirably. They couldn't do it all by themselves, and despite their best effort, they didn't get nearly as much help as they needed, and, well, the Ravens are going home because of it.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. I usually say, right around now, he'll be spending the week out in Owings Mills. He'll be cleaning out lockers, and we will be getting back on to Terp season and spring training and the funky season of John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco ahead. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by one of our newest sponsors, Curio Wellness. Going to be telling you about them, cultivating a better way of life. They're on York Road, just south of Timonium Road. A trusted healthcare partner providing safe, effective, and reliable products, seeking to continually elevate the healthcare conversation through education and patient experiences that are truly transformative. Yes, it says cannabis on the sign. Come in and find out more about all the wellness products, all the education they provide, as well as their massage studios in the back. They have it all going on. They even do yoga. It's Curio Wellness, York Road, just south of Timonium Road. Learn more at CurioWellness.com. Also, our friends at Charles and Nestor and Sons. Since 1923, true love comes in all shapes and sizes. You know, we just got through Christmas, just got through New Year's, just got through Festivus, and now Valentine's Day a couple weeks away. We'll be telling you more about all that they're doing as Luke and I go down to Super Bowl for the week before Valentine's Day. We'll be in Atlanta. Charles Nisanoff and Sons will be with us. Learn more about what they do at charlesnisanoff.com. Beep the horn at 695 and Perring Parkway when you drive by and see Sydney. Also, our friends at the Lee Tessier team. Sure, they're based up in Hartford County, but they can sell a home anywhere, including downtown, where my home is on the market right now. We're selling our place in 2019, like the Jeffersons, moving on up, moving on out. Lee Tessier's there, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks that I'm trusting with my real estate transaction. Find out why. Go to leetessier.com and learn more about what they do. Bill Cole's going to be here to do some therapy with me. I'm going to need that. I may be up on the roof threatening to jump off before it's all over with. ColeRoofing.com. They've been doing it for 100 years now, since 1919. They've been making Baltimore roofs better, and they're always a Baltimore company. Bill's a third generation. Fourth or third? Got to add that up. I'm going to ask him on Thursday. I think he says third or fourth. I'm going to have to ask him. ColeRoofing.com. Maybe it says so on the website. I'm going to go poke around. They do our community and charity series, and, of course, provide my coffee cup that I put my Royal Farms coffee in. And I'm going to need a little bit of that to make it through the week here, Luke. There's so many things to talk about here. I'm going to take Joe Flacco for $500 right now, or for $25 million in this case. The notion that Flacco wasn't brought in, the notion that the fans booed Lamar Jackson, the notion that Jimmy Smith got involved in that conversation, I think others got involved in that afterward, the wearing of the baseball mask, something out of the Warriors, into the stadium on Sunday, just a lot of sort of noise outside of the fact that they got beaten 11 on 11 on most plays on Sunday.
Yeah, and look, I don't think fans were just booing Lamar Jackson, although I won't buy people saying that they weren't booing Lamar Jackson. I think fans were booing the offense and the coaching staff and the quarterback and the offensive line. And so, look, there's always that philosophical debate as far as should fans boo the home team? When is it okay to boo the home team? What purpose does it serve? And we can all, we can all debate that till we're blue in the face. And you could have 10 different Ravens fans or 10 different sports fans for that matter, and you can have 10 different opinions on
let me give you my opinion on part of that. Part of that is when fans booed before, and look, the Kyle Bowler thing is about as low as you want to be. I mean, your quarterback's on the ground, writhing in pain and getting cheered. You're a fan full of dicks is what you are. If you're Philadelphia, if you're doing that. I was just
going to say, that's Philadelphia booing Santa Claus right there.
Yeah, that happened a dozen years ago, and that happened, and I was in the stands that night, as I've been in the stands for all these games. And I think the thing has changed here since the knee and the empty stadium, and since the right-wing party of the fan base has abandoned the team, or mostly abandoned the team over the last year and a half. I don't know what's going to become of my PSLs because no one sat in them all year. I don't like eating $85 tickets on Sunday afternoons if nobody wants them, so why do I have them if nobody wants them? I bought PSLs thinking my beautiful 34-year-old child would love the Ravens so much that he would have to. My son doesn't want to pay $85 to go to Ravens games, so any more than your brother does, right? Even though you go to Ravens games, right? So I don't know where we are with the fan base. I'll say this on Sunday, though. The fans are different than what's been in that stadium over the last 22 years. I think that's very, very obvious to any of us who have been going for 22 years and who have seen the people around us. You walk through the stadium, you walk through the lot. The fan base in the last 2 weeks has turned over. There are now people in those seats that did not sit in those seats in September and October and November and most of December. And now the last 2 weeks, someone has been coming to the games. Luke, it's not the same people that were at the Peyton Manning game in 2006, or not the same people that were at the Houston Texans game 7 or 8 years ago, whenever it was, and it might have been 10 years ago now. I get all those years mixed up between 08 and 13, and what year was Billy Cundiff, and what year we got run over by Pittsburgh and whatnot, because they do kind of all run together for me. But I do know this, that the fans that did whatever they did on Sunday, you know, it's a different part of the fan base coming out now. Those aren't the same people that cheered Kyle Bowler being injured 12 years ago, I guess is my point. And yet it is still very disheartening how quickly a home game can become a road game in Baltimore, Maryland, when I remember, it's all fresh to me, Luke, you know, rolling the ball out for the first preseason game against the Eagles in 1996 and how lucky we were to have the team. We're we're a quarter of a century past that. I don't know how fans react. I know it's not the most astute fan base. Let me just say that.
Well, but I'll also say this, and this is coming from the perspective of someone who, in my younger days, would boo the team for poor performance. And, you know, looking back at it, it is what it is. This team had 83 yards in 3 quarters. This team had 3 points in 3 quarters in a home playoff game. This wasn't in Carson. This wasn't in Foxborough or Pittsburgh. They were playing in their home stadium. So I would venture to say most fan bases in the NFL are acting like Ravens fans did on Sunday and are frustrated like Ravens fans were on Sunday. And I don't believe that all of it was directed toward Lamar Jackson individually. Some of it certainly was, and I think that's really unfortunate considering we're talking about a now 22-year-old quarterback who was the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game in NFL history. But if Joe Flacco started Sunday's game and the Ravens played like that, they would have been booed in the same way, and I don't know, maybe worse. So all I know is this: the enthusiasm that had kind of been reborn over the last couple weeks, and the fact that they had a mostly full house against Cleveland, and the fact that they obviously had a full house for a playoff game, at least in the first half, and you know some fans departed in the second half, and you know that is what it is. And again, I think that happens at a lot of places, but with them going down in such a poor manner on Sunday, and I know what the final score looked like, but we know what that game was from an eyeball test standpoint. That's where you do worry about all of the momentum, all the traction that it appeared they had gained the last couple weeks. Does that go away now? The people that were buying into Lamar Jackson, and look, there's still a lot to like about Lamar Jackson. I want to be very clear about that. There's still plenty that he did show over the last 8 weeks to have optimism, while also acknowledging that there's a lot of development and improvement that needs to happen from year 1 to year 2. By the way, that was the case with Joe Flacco. Go back and look at his year 1 numbers and then see what happened in year 2.
Well, I mean, he threw the interception to Palomalu that ended the season,
there's
right?
A progression there.
But it wasn't the AFC Championship game, so you can only be so mad about it, you know?
I know, but again, go back and look at Joe's postseason numbers his first year and tell me why. Tell me that he was a big part of what they were doing in January. It just wasn't the case. They were running. They continued to run the ball exceptionally well. They didn't do that on Sunday. And they made special teams mistakes on Sunday, and probably you can go back and not find many special teams mistakes against the Dolphins or against the Tennessee Titans. Again, we're talking 10 years ago, so I'm not going to completely act like my memory is completely jogged on that. But Joe Flacco did not have a good postseason his first rookie year, or his first year. He just didn't. And anyone who suggests otherwise, you're making it up as you go along. He didn't become January Joe, meaning a guy that was a big reason why they were winning games, until his third year, and really his fourth and fifth year. And that's when it really became something where he was money in the postseason. He was along for the ride, and he was part of it in 2008. He didn't do anything in 2009. He was hurt. You know, he had the hip issue. So I understand that they won in 2008, and they got to the AFC Championship, but the entire team played much better than they did on Sunday. It wasn't a Joe Flacco thing. Just like on Sunday, They didn't lose just because of Lamar Jackson. He was one of many reasons why they lost. So I guess it comes back to this. I mean, if you don't buy into Lamar Jackson, that's fine. And by the way, I'm not sold on him either. But at the same time, I'm not going to completely erase everything that happened over the previous 7 weeks just because he played poorly on Sunday. He needs to get better, and that was the truth when they had won 6 out of 7. So, you know, I think to go back to a point you made a few minutes ago that, you know, we kind of got off, you know, not got off specifically what you said, got off that topic. There is a lot of unknown, and a lot of it has to do with him, and a lot of it has to do with the veterans on this football team that inevitably aren't going to be on this team anymore. I mean, you always have turnover. There's always a pretty fair amount of roster turnover. I mean, one of the more undersold parts of going from 2017 to 18, we talk so much about Dean Pease's departure, but the Ravens, until training camp, where then, you know, they traded Kamale Correa, they got rid of Carl Davis, they cut Bronson Kafusi. But going into the 2018 preseason, Ladarius Webb was the only player from the previous year on the defense who played meaningful snaps who didn't return. And you don't have that kind of continuity very often. And I guarantee you they're not going to have that same level of continuity with the defense going from 18 to 19. So there's going to be turnover there, and we're going to have to see how they adjust. And we're really going to need to start seeing some young guys that frankly have been disappointments to this point, like a Tyus Bowser, like a Tim Williams. Going to need to see some more guys like that step up if this defense is going to remain playing at a high level. And on the flip side, I think it was very apparent on Sunday that even with all of the great run schemes that they have used, this offensive line is still very much lacking and needs to get better. And
well, it can only do one thing, right? I mean, when it came time to pass protect, they weren't good at it. When it came time to pass, the quarterback isn't very good at it. They dared the quarterback to throw the football, and they had negative passing yards through 3 quarters at home in a playoff game. I mean, on a windy day as well, which probably also didn't factor into much well. So just not what you want to see with the season on the line. And I think this is where you get judged and you say, well, yeah, we would have gone up and given Tom Brady hell, and we would have, you know, now it's clean the lockers out, and we're about to deal away the best throwing quarterback we have, the guy who can read defenses. There was always that sort of security blanket part of it, and he's going to be gone now. I don't know whether Harbaugh's going to stick around. I was not absolutely convinced by anything the organization or John Harbaugh said that John Harbaugh's not talking to the Miami Dolphins today, right? And until I see the contract, and while there's 8 jobs open, and while John Harbaugh still hasn't won a playoff game, in 5 years or whatever the number is at this point, I would still look at it and say, we're not done around here by a long shot. I would tell any Ravens fans, hold on to your chairs here the next couple of days, because until John Harbaugh has an extension, John Harbaugh's a dangling coach, and every one of his coordinators is a dangling coordinator.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you never say never. I mean, there are so many situations with head coaches, managers in baseball, where you think one thing is the case, and the organization tells you one thing is the case, and then it changes. So if I had to guess, if you tell me yes or no if I think John Harbaugh is going to be coaching the Ravens in 2019, I'll say yes, but
depends how much I have in my pocket that you need me to bet, right? Would I put 20 on the fact of him being the Ravens coach? Yes. Would I put 200? No, I wouldn't. Because I don't want to lose $200, and there's 8 jobs open, and I've seen nothing from John Harbaugh that says that he's committed the next 6 years, and I've seen nothing on the backside of this game that makes Steve Bisciotti want to say, here, John, here's $50 million more. Stick around through 2020, let's see, would that be 23, 24? What would that be? Yeah. It'd be looking like that, right? And also for Eric, and also for the organization, that is a kumbaya that I don't know that they've had a serious sit-down to talk about over the last couple of weeks when they're trying to win football games to keep their season alive. Which, by the way, every week, they've played a playoff game every week for 7 weeks here, right? If they had lost that game in San Diego or Carson or wherever the hell it was, there would have been none of this, right? So all of this was predicated on we better wake up and eat this week. They've never had any breathing room. Nor have any of these teams. The Colts were 1-5. I mean, all of these teams. The Eagles are still alive, for crying out loud. And look at where they were 2-3 weeks ago. So that's what this is. But now they have a chance to breathe. I don't know, man. Bisciotti regretted giving Billick $25 million. Why is he going to give Harbaugh $50? I'm just saying. I don't think it's as open and closed as maybe some in the fan base or even the media believe, because I think the uppity people in the media are all wondering how the Dolphins would offer a 1 and a 3 for Flacco and Harbaugh. It's not as far-fetched as you might think Jason La Canfora is,
At this point, and I'll go back to something from last season, and I've talked about this. It's hard to really trust anything at face value. And look, I'm not saying the Ravens are blatantly lying, but last February, Steve Bisciotti sat there in front of the media and said, we have bigger fish to fry than to draft Joe Flacco's eventual replacement. And 2 months later, what happened? They drafted Joe Flacco's replacement. So why should I believe everything that they say at face value? And look, circumstances change. I'm not saying that they blatantly are lying at the time, or that even when they put that statement out 2 weeks ago, that was a complete lie. But to your point, until there is an extension signed, sealed and delivered, and they have a press conference, or at least put out a press release. And
yeah, you can tell me to shut up and stop talking about it, but until he has a contract, I'm not going to shut up and stop talking about it, because I've been around this too long, and John Harbaugh is liable to be wearing a Dolphins hat by Thursday. That is not outrageous at all, or a Packers hat, or a Browns hat, or whoever wants him the most. This is his week. Literally, right now is his week to go figure out who wants him the most. And there was no way to know that 2 weeks ago, because he was unavailable. He's available now, and he's available for a draft pick, and and the offering of getting together with his agent in the same way that Flacco's available right now. And so this is a weird week all the way around, because this is when the chairs start moving around. Remember, we were sitting at the Super Bowl last year, and Alex Smith's a Redskin all of a sudden, right? And Kirk Cousins is walking around on his beauty tour, and he bought a house down the street for $90 million. So things happen. Somebody's going to give Joe Flacco a lot of money. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Well, and here's another sticking point that really comes to light based on what happened on Sunday, and you heard me going on my rant about what the heck this offensive game plan was on Sunday. If you're Steve Bisciotti, and even if you are fully intending to give John Harbaugh a contract extension, or want to, let's say, do you have a conversation with John Harbaugh about Marty Mornhinweg? I mean, my goodness, we talked about that last year at this time. We talked about that at the bye week last year. We talked about it at the end of 2016 when he, a week after he made one of the all-time worst calls, in John Harbaugh's words, in that Philadelphia game when they were trying to protect the lead and they threw the ball down inside the 10-yard line, and there was a pick, and the Eagles ran it back and almost beat them a few minutes later. So when you look at Sunday and the game plan and the lack of any kind of a semblance of meaningful adjustments that were made, if you're Steve Bisciotti, do you have a conversation with John Harbaugh and say, look, John, here's your 4-year extension, but I'm not a believer in Marty Mornhinweg? And how does John Harbaugh reply to that? I mean, he's stuck with Marty over the last couple of years. Why does that suddenly change now? Especially, can point to everything they did with their running game, even though I've said on a number of occasions, this is stuff Greg Roman used in San Francisco. This wasn't a trademark of Marty Mornhinweg offense. We saw what Marty Mornhinweg's offense was prior to Greg Roman getting here. It was throw, and throw some more, and run the ball every once in a while. So
yeah, it was Bill Walsh 91 is what it was, I guess, right?
So that's where you go into, okay, what does Harbaugh want? What does the organization want? But do you see what happened on Sunday and suddenly have a change of heart how you feel about Marty Mornhinweg? I mean, I think it has to be brought up, right? I mean,
we're going to do a whole segment on the coaches and on Bisciotti and where this thing's going here. Luke is with us. He will not be in Owings Mills any longer once they clean the lockers out. No one will be in Owings Mills. You can find him, Luke, at WNST.net. And, of course, Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. I am nasty at WNST.net. Together, we're going to be out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault, ripping apart all of this, talking to lots of folks. I'm going to have some of my friends on this week that I talk football with in my real world, as well as some of our partners around here. I'm going to go around the league. We're going to be in Atlanta in 3 weeks for a whole week, talking to tons and tons of insiders and experts. Certainly not about a Ravens Super Bowl berth down there. And I was busy putting road trips on sale this week. All of that has halted. So we'll get into some Terps, get into some Orioles, and certainly keep it with the Ravens and the coaches and Bisciotti and Flacco and Harbaugh and everything that's about to happen here with Lamar Jackson. Also, our morning newspaper ships at 7 a.m. Many of you come up to me out in the community, tell me you get our morning newspaper and read it every morning at 7 a.m. I am appreciative. It's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. And there's one right around the corner here in 2019. Now that the Ravens are eliminated, go to the gym. Use your time wisely. Get in the best shape of your life. It's at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Don't forget as well, the Maryland Jockey Club and the entries on the front of WNST.net all the time, in the front of our WNST morning newspaper each and every morning as well. Laurel Park is there, the beautiful new remodeled and refurbished sports bar. Check it out. They're going to be getting back to Hi-Ho Pimlico. It's almost springtime. I keep telling myself that in early January before it starts snowing. Last but never least, any breaking news. If there's anything with John Harbaugh or Joe Flacco or anyone else, you'll get it first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. Dennis is also going to be checking in with me on all of the disappointment of the end of Festivus. Before I even got to hang my purple Festivus lights up and turn them on in the studio, I may do it once just for old time's sake before I put them back away again. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.